Regina Campbell, your host here at the Legal Zone, brought to you by the Campbell Law Group. We're here today with a really exciting topic, marital home, keep it or sell it. And we have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to just take a moment to step back and talk about our prior podcast and our guests. Our guests of our last prior podcast it was in Spanish, and it was done with our international associate, Virginia Mancia, and our board certified real estate attorney, Lucila Ramos. That is become part of the Campbell Law Group, where we basically discuss the reasons for bringing in investments from Latin America, particularly, as there's a great interest in doing so, to Florida and the United States, and the benefits and the pitfalls, the pros and cons that you need to be careful of when you do so. If you missed that episode, by all means, go back and check it on our YouTube channel or our Apple Podcast channel, anywhere else that we have online. It was a great episode. Go back and see it if you didn't see it. But today I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Jeffrey A. Landers. He is an expert in various areas that I think will be very important as to the importance of a marital home and what to do in a divorce, whether you should keep it or sell it. And this is a topic that I've had a lot of difficulty with a lot of my own clients, and even just trying to figure out deals, basically negotiating and trying to settle things, because it's always one of the biggest assets involved in a divorce. And then, of course, it's even more complicated by the fact that you may have, the wife or husband may not have the ability to go refinance or go get a new home. There's always those issues if they've been home for a certain amount of time, if the children live there. So we brought in Mr. Landers today, which is going to talk to us. I'm going to give a brief introduction about his wonderful, resume and his book, which is out. Divorce House Sense, and it's fantastic. I think it does a very good job at breaking apart different chapters and different issues that are going to be important in making this decision and how to do so. And it also discusses some of the more complicated topics. So right now people are very concerned about high interest rates and whether you should refinance. It kind of scares people, creates another roadblock for potentially resolving, a marital dispute or a divorce itself. But he goes into great detail about it, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about this book today. But first, I want to go ahead and just give a little introduction about Mr. Landers' background. We talked a little bit about his book. It's available on Amazon and on his website, www.nextactproperties.com/books.
That's correct. Thank you.
And Mr. Landers is also a seasoned real estate, mortgage, and divorce expert with over 40 years of combined experience. Jeff, I'd like us to call him Jeff.
Please.
Okay. Yes, I know I keep saying Mr. Landers. He's probably looking around. Hey, you're like, who's that?
Exactly.
Earned his BA in psychology from Columbia University. He studied at Pace University of Law before becoming a divorce financial advisor. He is also a certified divorce financial analyst, a certified divorce lending professional, and a licensed real estate and mortgage broker. So he brings quite a bit of experience and license and certifications to this process and to this topic today. In 2010, Jeff founded the Bedrock Divorce Advisors LLC company, working exclusively with women going through through financially complicated divorces. In dealing with a marital home, it's almost always a major issue with a divorce, like we talked about just a moment ago. And Jeff has a strong background and a know-how. Has guided many women all over the United States on how to go through this process. It's a very complex process as to how to sell their marital home or even potentially buying out their spouse, refinancing a mortgage, and so they might be able to remain in their home. He also can talk a little bit about creating an income stream, how we can get creative with these ideas, of course, post-divorce also. One of the factors is income production, concerns of being able to pay the bills, qualify for mortgages. So Mr. Jeff is going to talk to us about all this. I'm on Landers now. Sorry. So basically, I'm going to take a moment then, I think, with that intro. If I've missed anything, we'll go through it. But I'm going to introduce Jeff, not Mr. Landers.
Thank you, Regina.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you for having me. That's great.
Yes, yeah. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, we went in the intro, you can see the concerns. I deal with a lot of this in a lot of the divorces that I handle, and it's a problem. It's usually the biggest asset of parties.
Exactly.
And depending on whether they're, at the beginning of their marriage or they have young children in the middle or towards the end, even if they've been married 40 years, which also becomes very hard, especially if they've been in the home, I assume, for 40 years,
Right.
And there's limited income. So what are the, I guess, top view tips that you have for us today?
Well, first of all, I think people need to decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
So usually you have three options. You continue to co-own the home together post-divorce, which in my opinion is a horrible, horrible idea for lots of reasons, and we could talk about that. Or you sell the home, and, after, the costs of the sale, you divide the proceeds and each go your own way. Or very often, as you know, one spouse, for a variety of reasons, would like to remain in the home. And that usually necessitates that they buy out their spouse's share of the equity. And then if the mortgage is not already in their own name, they're gonna have to refinance because the other spouse no longer wants to be obligated on a mortgage for a home they don't own.
Right.
So that's really the three things. Now, there's some people that are, the house has horrible memories.
Yes.
I don't want anything to do with it, or it's too big, or, I never liked the location or whatever. That becomes a lot easier, you just sell it. But now you're gonna have two divorced people, okay? So even if you sell the home and they wanna go out and buy another home or a condo or downsize, they still have to qualify. And there's certain things that need to be included in the divorce settlement agreement to make sure that they can qualify, like if one spouse is receiving alimony and child support, what's required for that. And the spouse that's paying it, they may have a hit as well, and there's some ways to get around that. But those are usually the three choices. And then it depends whether they can, if they want to keep it, whether they can qualify. And do they have enough assets to buy out the other spouse? And if they don't, what are the ways that we can get around that?
Okay, so one of the issues that that usually happens, because it's usually the biggest asset, if someone wants to buy somebody out, if they have enough other alternative assets or other assets that are similar in property also, because part of the problem could be liquidity. You might have another instrument or stock instrument that doesn't have, or another business or something that lacks liquidity.
Right.
So the other person has to kind of take that into consideration. They're figuring out, I'll give you the house and I'll take these assets. Sometimes that happens.
And the tax implications as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
So what happens is they have to look at that. Does this make sense for me to really take this? And they have to, maybe sometimes you're even making one party giving more to one party that's taking more to liquid assets. Because it is a liquid, you might be slightly uneven, not exactly 50-50.
Right, and the person that's keeping the home, you don't want to be house rich and cash poor.
Exactly.
Okay, you got this beautiful house, but now you got, even if you qualify, you got the mortgage, you've got the real estate taxes, and you have the upkeep.
Right.
Okay, what happens if the roof has to be replaced in 3 years? Do you have 40 grand or whatever it is to do that? So, there are a lot of things to take into consideration besides, can I buy the other spouse out and can I qualify and afford the mortgage?
Correct. And you brought up a good point that we just kind of talked a little bit in there. A lot of my accountant friends like to say, Regina, I want a tax effect. We look at a marital settlement agreement, we look at an equity distribution chart that we're thinking about settling, where do you want to tax effect it? Or at least our client, I try to make sure my client understands, like if they do take a certain property or an asset, what does it mean when they go to sell it?
Right.
Because there could be a huge cost to it, right, where they're incurring. You have to take it into consideration, right, into which asset you take, because it could be a huge gain on that.
Without question. I mean, if you have a stock portfolio and you want to liquidate part of that to buy out the other spouse, well, what kind of capital gains might you have on that stock, and are you taking that into consideration? And the same thing, with retirement funds. Okay, so you have to think about that as well. Any distribution. Now, there's some ways, we'll talk about how to create income. There's, something called the 72T, where you could take distributions from your IRA or 401k, but you have to take all of that into consideration for sure.
So we'll definitely get into that more, as I'm sure it's very important. And I also have some clients that there's occasions where like the husband might have been husband and wife, that particularly came about, they might be a hedge fund holder, or certain instruments require capital calls.
Right.
So, you don't want that if you're not the more savvy or, business partner, or, spouse that understands the nature that you have to be careful not insisting on wanting that asset.
Right,
That's
and
something
I
you-
worked on a case where,
Yes.
where not only were they capital calls, but they were clawbacks.
Ah, yes,
So,
yes, I love
if
it.
they didn't achieve a certain return,
Yes,
there might be clawbacks, and that could be, especially per,
Yeah.
private equity, that could be in the hundreds of thousands or millions.
exactly.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
be careful what you wish for,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And don't be too angry to assist, he likes that, I want that fund. Because you may not actually want it. Sometimes out of anger, sometimes people also want, well, he loves that fund, or he loves that investment, always talked about it, that company, and I want it. Like you said, be careful what you wish for.
Right, and every case is different. I mean, is it very contentious?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be hard to do things, to keep the home or even to sell it. If the parties are either trying to sabotage each
Yeah.
other, or they're not even speaking to each other,
Yes.
or they won't cooperate, or exactly what you said, you want it, you're not getting it.
Yes, exactly. I'd rather, cut off my arm than let you have it. And it's like, I don't even know what it is half the time.
Right.
I don't really understand it, but yes.
Right, so, so the first thing is to really decide what you want to do, and if one of the spouses would like to keep the home, and in my experience, more often than not, it is the wife, especially if they're minor children that would like to stay in the home. Then I like to work backwards, okay, to really see, okay, one, are there assets to buy out the other spouse?
Yes.
If there are, then, okay, what's the mortgage? Now, you're refinancing, maybe, maybe your mortgage was 3% or less, a year ago, and now, as of this morning, I think it was 6.4
Yes,
plus or
yes.
minus. Okay, so now your monthly payment might be going up $1,000, okay? So can you afford it?
Right.
Okay, what's your other situation? What's your credit score? What's on your credit reports? Did you have any late payments? Your debt to income ratio, do you have student loans? Do you have car loans? Do you have other mortgages?
Yes.
So it's not, okay, I have the money to buy them out, and I have this income coming in and I could do it. That's just part of the puzzle. That doesn't mean you qualify.
No, and you brought up a good point, and we can kind of go into that. So when someone's looking at doing that, like you're pointing out, one of the biggest problems I have when there might be, and a lot of times it is the woman, they are, okay, I'm gonna buy you out, or I need to go move into a smaller home maybe, but I need to be able to qualify. Obviously, she's
Right.
buying it on her own. She's not buying it with a husband or a co-signer. And most of the time, I understand why a husband or another party may not want to, because it also may be another woman, but may not want to co-sign or remain on a mortgage because they also are limited themselves on being able to get another mortgage and kind of move on.
Right, or they take a hit if the person that's supposed to pay is late, or they skip a payment. Now, both credit reports get dinged.
Correct. So what does someone do in those circumstances, like if they haven't worked for 10 years? And they don't have it, like we talked about, just the
Right.
structure deals.
So, first of all, can that spouse that wants to keep the home get alimony?
Yeah.
If so, how much? Are they getting child support?
Mhm.
Okay, now there's a bunch of requirements. So in most cases, for conventional loans, you have had to receive it consistently on time for 6 months prior to even applying,
Yes.
and then it has to continue for at least another 36 months thereafter.
Mhm.
So if you think you can count on your child support, okay, but the age of emancipation is 18,
Right.
and one of your kids is 16, child support's gonna last for 2 years,
Right.
okay, that doesn't meet the 36-month requirement.
Right.
So now, there's some ways to get around it. Maybe you assign more child support to the younger child,
Yes.
okay? You could do
Or
that.
you increase your alimony temporarily for the time.
Or increase the alimony, or it becomes a horse trade type of thing.
Yes.
Okay, I'll only take 40% of the 401k,
Yes.
but for the next, 3 years or 42 months or whatever, give me that much more in alimony.
Yes. Yes.
So, and the other thing is, I mean, if the spouse that wants to keep the home has a good job,
Yeah.
they may not even need, legally, you can't even ask if you're depending on
Yes, that's
alimony or
correct.
child support. Now, somebody could say, yeah, I'm using my alimony and child support and I'm having, but if someone's making sufficient income, W-2 or whatever, They don't even have to, then it becomes a non-issue.
Okay. And I mean, I know from experience and from having to litigate these issues, why is it such a bad idea to own a home with your ex-husband or your ex-wife? Let me let you tell you a little bit horror stories.
There's so many reasons we could spend 2 hours right now talking about that. So, I mean, you're getting divorced for a reason,
Yeah.
okay? You're not getting along, there's, infidelity, whether it's, marital or financial or whatever, or there's a drug addiction, or there's some other problems. You're getting divorced for a reason,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And as we've been saying, the home is the largest asset.
Right.
Okay, so do you now want to continue post-divorce to own your largest asset with your ex, and maybe your ex has a new significant other that's saying, get the money, we wanna buy a nice new place house. Or what do you keep giving her money, when there's a third party involved,
Yes.
it makes things very, very difficult. Then what happens if the roof needs to be repaired?
Right.
Okay, now you co-own it together, but it's $40,000 to replace the roof. So you would think, okay, if you're doing 50-50, you kick in 20, you kick in 20. What if I don't have the 20?
Right.
Okay, and the other one says, no, I don't have it either.
Right.
Or one party wants to sell because of maybe a third party, and the other one's, no, I'm happy here, I don't want to sell.
Yeah.
Or what if the market is terrible, like right now? Not great. Is this a great time to sell? And if you do, where are you going to go? Because interest rates are much higher. So there's so many factors, and I've seen where spouses, in the divorce settlement agreement, it's another 10 pages plus of legalese. Okay, what if you can't agree on even which real estate broker to use?
Yes.
Okay, what's your listing price? If it doesn't sell, when do you reduce the price? How much do you reduce it by?
Exactly, yes.
You could go on, and no matter how good of an attorney you might be, you can't think of everything. You can't think of every what-if scenario. I mean, whoever thought about a pandemic?
No.
Okay, that's, the black swan situation that nobody thought about.
Or even the recession, in 2008 and 9, when it started hitting hard,
Right.
there were so many people that structured certain settlement agreements in a certain way, and then all of a sudden the houses are upside down.
Yeah.
They're so you're not getting what you thought you were going to get. Oh, great! I'm keeping the house. I have this. I have that. You think you have $100,000 in equity? It adjusts and whoop.
But you have that now. I was just reading that a lot of people that bought at the very, very top of the market.
Yes.
And the prices have come down, especially if they did 95% financing or whatever.
Yes.
Some of those people are already underwater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and when the bidding was crazy, $50,000 over asking, no contingencies, no nothing.
Yes.
And they spent all this money, and a lot of them, I think, are having buyer's regret, like, oh my God, what did I do? I overpaid by, $50,000 or $100,000. And if the market has come down as it has in certain areas, not here in Miami, but
I know. We're in that paradox.
right, but in a lot of other places, so people are actually underwater.
Yeah, there's a huge correction going on in most part of the country with
Right.
housing. Although you wouldn't know that from the inflation numbers, so they don't reflect them yet, but there is a correction going on.
Yeah, and if you're underwater and you want to keep the home and do a refi, okay, the appraisal, the amount you're getting is not gonna match that. You're gonna have to come up with more cash to pay off the old mortgage.
Right, just to be able to get rid of it.
Right.
And then all the equity or something you might put into it, now you no longer have it to go to a new home.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So
These are interesting facts. We can just see just as talking here, there's various different reasons. I had a party that they got along excellent. Amazing, these two, even getting divorced. The wife wasn't too happy about the divorce, but she was handling it very reasonably, very, very mature, so to speak.
Sounds like my situation.
It does, yeah.
I was married for 34 years, but it's very amicable divorce also, so.
It's unusual, but it really is so important to do it.
Mhm.
Because people they're so stuck in the anger at the time, and I get it. It's not that I don't get that anger. It's not that I don't get the frustration that the person might have let you down, or this is breaking apart, and everything that it means, right? But at the end of the day, they forget about you still have to live after. If you have so much
Yes.
scorched earth that you like destroy 25% of the value in your marital assets, or potentially made it more difficult for someone to make money, or you just spent more money on attorney fees than necessary, it's less you have for later.
Right, now,
You know?
I've worked on divorces, as
Yeah.
I'm sure you have, where one spouse doesn't care.
Yes, no.
Okay, it's like I'd rather be living in a cave
Yeah.
than give him or her.
Any more money than she can. I'm gonna try to lose it all before she can have it.
Right,
Yes,
right.
or vice versa.
well, you see people
Yeah.
do that, you see them, start to kill their businesses
Yes,
or whatever.
Yeah.
The thinking might be, okay, after the divorce, I'll build it
I'll
up
build it
again,
back up again.
but right now, I'm getting it
Yes.
down to as
Yeah.
worthless as possible, so.
I've seen a couple of, particularly in these cases, husbands where they highly leverage it.
Right,
Intentional, never did that the whole 10 years they had the business, and also they're leveraging everything is going on debt, I don't have the money, I don't have this, and that becomes hard.
oh yeah, I worked on a case where they changed the accounting method, and they redid the taxes a couple of years back, so it ended up
Yeah,
showing a
that's it.
loss.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so I mean, there's all sorts of shenanigans
Yeah.
that
That's
have
where-
gone on.
Yeah, it's kind of where my corporate background and the financial background makes me understand. I'm like, no, wait a second here. And you gotta look bigger, you gotta look deeper into the different layers. But even then, it's still expensive to litigate these issues, prove them.
Right,
And I think also part of the problem is there is times in which even when one party wants to be reasonable, if the other's not, you're going along for the ride. There's really not much you can do.
right, and you wanna
Yeah.
avoid trial, okay,
Yes,
because besides the fact that it's extremely expensive,
Yes.
when you go to a judge and you say, hey, we can't figure it out, you do.
Yeah.
You don't know what's gonna happen,
Mm.
okay? Both parties are taking a huge risk because maybe that judge had a fight with their spouse what's interesting, they
Yeah.
did a study that, the rulings that come down right before lunch are usually very adverse. People are hungry, they wanna go, they don't care, let's get it done,
Yes.
whatever, and after lunch,
Probably on a
things.
Friday
Yeah,
afternoon
they
too.
did a study, which I found fascinating, so.
Yes. Well, I've had a lot of judges, they'll sit there and they'll tell our clients, right, I'm representing one party, someone's representing another. You really need to try to figure this out. Because I'm happy, it's my job, if I have to, I'll do it.
Right,
You may not like my decision, and remember, I'm not gonna understand you guys, or your way of being, or what works for you or for your children is the same way you guys will. I'll do my best, but really, you guys are the best people to make this determination.
and many judges don't have a financial background because they don't teach finance in law school, so most attorneys don't have a background in finance, and of course, then the judges don't have, so they're making a decision on things that they may not fully understand when you're
Yes.
talking about the tax implications of this or that,
I'm
or.
giving this property to the wife and giving this one to the husband and
Right,
what it means, yes.
Right,
yes.
and now, you've got exclusions on the primary residence, I mean, not everybody is fully
No.
like anything else, you have some that are really
Really interesting, yes.
know
yes,
what's
yes.
going on, and others, especially because of the shortages, they may pull a judge
Yes.
from, a different
From probate
division.
or something,
Right.
Not as familiar, and a lot of the judges here, we rotate them, they come from criminal to family.
Right, exactly.
And they might have been previously a prosecutor or a defense attorney for criminal cases, you put them in family, they have to learn.
Right,
And they aren't like anything, we all learn, we're general practitioners as lawyers, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna understand those nuances, it's just the reality.
well,
Right away
exactly.
especially.
And that's why, as you said, if they could solve it themselves, and that's why it's important, in my opinion, to have a team.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
not only the attorney,
Yes.
but, as a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Advisor, I've worked on all the financial aspects. I mean, the reason that I got into the whole thing with the marital home, was, after doing hundreds of cases, you realize that in almost every one, the home is the most contentious piece of it, and it's usually, if not the largest, one of the largest assets.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to focus on, and the truth is, the sooner you bring somebody in like me in the
Yes.
beginning, the more time you have to correct things.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say, because most divorces aren't over in a month or two.
No.
I mean, they're a year, I've had some that go on for years.
Yeah.
So if you discover in the beginning that, okay, there's some problems on your credit report.
Yes.
Okay, but if you could pay down this credit card or
Yes.
pay this off or do that, you could bring up, not only would you bring up your score, but you bring down your
The
DTI.
rate, right, also.
Okay,
right,
so you're
yes.
killing two birds with one stone by doing that. Also, if I'm in or somebody that does what I do, and they look through everything and they try to figure out, can you qualify, but this is the mortgage, do you have assets? If you don't have sufficient assets, maybe you have to take out a larger mortgage, which means it's even harder to qualify.
Right.
So
Right.
if it's determined up front that, you know what, there's no way this is gonna happen, why spend all the money and the time going back and forth, negotiating the agreement and all of these things?
When you really don't know that.
When, okay, and now the agreement is signed and you go to a mortgage broker or to the bank and you find out you
Can't
don't
do it.
qualify.
Right.
Now you just spent all that time and money, and it would have been better to find that out right up front.
Yes.
Or to come up with alternative methods
For
of what to
planning,
do.
maybe it's like, okay, I do need to clean up my credit, it looks like even if it's not, contentious divorces can actually still have a level of, I don't want to say objectivity because it's the wrong word.
Dignity was
But,
right.
and I don't know if reasonable is the right word either, but kind of like a pragmatic side.
Right.
They can be pragmatic, like, I don't like any of this, but am I really going to cause myself that problem? There's times you might be angry with the spouse, okay, they were cheating on you, okay, great, don't get me wrong, it's not fun. But you also have to say to yourself, okay, financially, where does this leave me?
Right.
Right? My emotional, I need, that's another aspect I need to deal with, but that's different. Then where do I live? My economic situation, how do I make it better? What is it gonna look like when I get divorced? So it might be something you can plan for, and I'm a collaborative attorney as well with the institution here in Florida and in Miami, and a lot of times we'll bring together like similar attorneys, collaborative, and collaborative does not mean we're all, singing Sound of Music on the hill there. It does not mean that at all, you know what I mean? A lot of them are very highly contentious cases, but they've had that pragmatic side that it's like, okay, I need to deal with this, we sometimes will involve an accountant or a financial planner or someone there. Also, sometimes there's aspects of the mental health professional, because it is emotional. But imagine, I can only imagine as a mom with my children, my first thing was, okay, when I got divorced, where am I gonna live? How am I gonna pay for it? So not only was there the hurt or the other things that were occurring, and we had businesses together and all this stuff and the complexity of it, but it's the angst. So that can cloud someone's potential judgment because you're in the middle of it. I think you're entitled to not be able to be fully objective.
Right.
But by having other professionals around you, they can help guide you. Okay, we can do this, let's structure a deal this way, and you got the financial professional in the room, okay, I think we can work this out if we try to do this, so they help you with the process.
Right.
And I think, that helps quite a bit, whether you do it in a collaborative setting, or you do it separately on your own with two attorneys and an accountant, or whoever your financial planner.
Because everybody can't be an expert in
No.
in everything. I mean, you have mortgage brokers and mortgage loan offices, but they don't know all the nuances of how divorce impacts that. In fact, a lot of attorneys don't. I've spoken to attorneys, they didn't know that 636 rule, okay, that, and and sometimes it becomes difficult because many times the cases that I've worked on where, in these cases, the husband was still paying the mortgage and he was paying the bills, so the attorney was, let's not ask for temporary support, he's already paying everything.
Correct.
Don't rock the boat.
Correct, or
Okay.
don't spend the money there.
Or you may end up getting less than what he's already paying, so don't do that.
Yeah.
That's fine and good, and I understand that, but the other side is, you gotta start the clock ticking, otherwise, because then I've seen many divorce settlement agreements that say you have 60 or 90 days to do the refinancing, or you have to put the house up for sale. Well, you're not gonna be able to do it if you have that 6-month rule. FHA, you can do 3 months, but for a conventional mortgage, you need 6 months.
Yes.
So if your settlement says you've got 60 or 90 days, ain't happening.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Exactly.
You're absolutely correct. And actually, some of that, it might resolve the tension even with the other partner if they realize we're planning to get this to make it more possible to see if she or he can qualify for this mortgage. It might calm the circumstances down a little bit because everyone gets, what if it doesn't sell? And what if this? And what if that? So if you understand at least that's a requirement, then it's more likely to happen. It might calm the person down that wants to keep the home. It might calm the other party down that at least if it doesn't work, that's okay. Then they're going to force the sale, and this is what's going to happen. But at least they're given a chance to.
And you want the
Yeah.
outcome to be good for both parties,
Right.
because even if one spouse is keeping the home, the other one now wants to go out and perhaps buy something else. So how is this going to impact his or her ability to
Correct.
get it qualified for a mortgage? Or if the home is sold, then now you've got two people that are going out maybe to buy something smaller, but they still have to qualify.
Yes.
So if you bring in a divorce mortgage expert, okay, that could sort of like help both parties. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, we'll do this because she wants to keep the home, but we understand that you've got your own situation, which is one of the reasons we're refinancing, to get you off the
You're
hook
off the hook.
and not
Right.
have that. Or maybe, there's certain debt and one party can agree to take
The
over the
debt.
debt,
Right.
and for the other party, it becomes a contingent liability, so it's not part of their
Yeah,
DTI.
DTI, right.
So there you go.
Absolutely correct. You know what I mean? And it helps because, I mean, as an attorney, a lot of this I know, I've got to know because I do talk to experts such as yourself.
Right.
And how can I structure a deal? How can I make it work? But even then, a lot of times we're sitting on the eve of trial or something and we're making this deal. Well, there's not a lot of time there.
No.
So to talk to an expert and say, okay, well, what about this? And what if they shift this? And what about the tax consequences here? And the clients look at me, Raj, what happens if this happens? And it's like, so I'm not an accountant. I can't tell you exactly what the
Right.
capital gains is going to be or the gains. I cannot tell you certain things.
And with the mortgage, it's a moving target right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Okay, it's changing
Yes.
literally by
Yes.
the hour,
Yes.
going up, going down, this and that. So 10 minutes ago, you may have qualified, and if rates go up, a quarter of a point,
Yeah.
you may not qualify.
Yeah.
Or you would only qualify for a lesser amount, so.
And if you have children, but this is from another angle, because I've seen this also, let's say they may not qualify for something in the same neighborhood. But there's another neighborhood, it might be more taxing on children that have to drive a little bit further.
Right.
But you have to think about co-parenting, you ask the other party, can I go ahead, I wanna move 10 miles this way.
Right.
In the state of Florida, usually you can within 50 miles, you don't have to notify the other party, but the reality is it will affect everyone's quality of life.
Right.
Everyone's driving further, there's the school, it opens up the discussion, well, I can afford a house here, so can you. Should we change schools? Should we keep driving them there? Should we consider maybe a private school here that might be able to afford? How does it affect everyone's life? Because it is also about there is a co-parenting aspect in a lot of these decisions as well.
Without question,
Yeah.
and I think that's why a lot of women
Yes.
want to keep the marital home, because the entire divorce is stressful enough on the parents. It's also stressful on the kids.
Yes.
Okay, and then for them to think, oh my God, I can't stay in the same school and I'm moving away from my friends, that creates all this other issue. And then on top of the divorce and everything else, now you have to pack up the entire house,
Yes.
and you gotta get
Yeah.
movers, and I mean, there's just
And you're
so
moving
much.
away from Susie and Tommy and everyone that you grew up with, for 10 years or that are like across the street. Those are very impactful things, that can be for children and not just adults, of course, but children as well.
Right,
So, but these are all the things I think that are so important to talk about, because this is how do you do this? You can't do this once you've already, put pen to paper.
well, at least after
Yeah,
you've signed.
right. That's what I mean, yeah.
Once it's done, it's done.
It's done,
That's why,
And by then you spend tens of thousands of dollars on attorney fees, so you're like, I don't even care if I sleep on the street at this point, I just get
right,
out of
just
here.
I wanna be done.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's important, and even if they can't qualify or don't have the assets, there are a couple of alternatives as well.
Please.
So one is called equity sharing. Okay,
Yes.
so they're companies that will come in and basically become your silent partner.
Okay.
So they'll give you, depending on the value of the home and all of that, and each company does their own thing, and they figure out based on how much equity and, loan to value, whatever, they'll give you $100,000. Okay, you could do whatever you want with it, okay, there's no payment, it's not a loan, they're your partner. But usually the stipulation is, again, different companies,
Yeah.
you have to either sell it or buy us out after 10 years.
Gotcha.
Some go as high as 30 years.
Wow.
And then, they may end up getting 40 or 50% of the future value, but at least you stay in the home.
They're betting on you that the house is going to appreciate. They want to ride it with you.
Right, but they'll also go with you on the downside.
Okay.
So if the neighborhood changes or whatever, and things go down or whatever, they'll ride with you there. So there are, I want to say 5 to 10 companies that do this. I've done it with a couple of clients. I mean, it's basically when nothing else works and you still want to stay in the home. And then the other thing, and your corporate background, you probably know about this, doing a sale leaseback.
Yes.
Where basically, let's say, I'll buy the house from the spouses, okay, and then the spouse that wants to stay there pays me rent.
Pays rent, right.
Okay, and there's several companies that do that as well, and many times they'll give the option to buy back the home at a higher price.
Of course.
Or they'll build in,
Or expenses.
either appraisal or, it increases 3% annually or whatever it is. But then sometimes you have your cake and eat it too. You sell the house, everybody gets their share, the mortgages are paid off, yet you still get to stay in the home.
And it bought you that time, it bought you a solution.
It's a solution, and now you no longer have to worry if the roof needs replacing, call the landlord.
Yeah, that's right.
But you don't have to move.
Yes.
You don't have to pack up. You get to stay in the house, and maybe your circumstances change a few years down the road. If you have the option to buy it back, there you go. So it's almost like having your cake and eating it.
That works out. And these are creative ideas that a lot of times, not just the divorce attorneys, but the parties themselves are they're unsure. They don't know if that's real. They need someone to be able to guide them.
Right.
That is.
Or they never heard of it.
Correct. We've never heard of
Okay,
it.
I mean, sale leaseback is very common in commercial real estate.
Yes,
I mean,
but
you
not
you have a CVS.
Yes.
Okay, I have a friend and she owns a bunch of CVS's, 20-year lease, doesn't have to worry, the money's deposited in her account.
Right.
It's awesome.
Right.
But
it's not as common, you're right, on an individual side.
Yeah, it's actually probably within the last 5 or 6 years that being done on the residential, but it's the exact same principle. Okay, again, it's probably, the last resort.
Yeah.
It's like, I wanna keep the house, but I wanna stay in the house, but there's no other way I can do this.
Yes, yeah.
Or you do it for short term, Johnny graduates from high school in 2 years, let me do it for 2 years and then I'll move on.
Right, or let me finish my master's degree, I'll make more money then, and I'll, gives me a little bit of time to.
Or maybe buy it back if you're gonna
Yes,
be.
or right,
Right,
yeah. Yes, exactly. So these are all great ideas. One of the ones also that I liked is, I know you're talking about creating streams, income streams.
Right.
So talk to me about that, because sometimes people just see things very one-dimensional. I have this in the bank account, I have a brokerage account, and I can't do it, I have a house and I can't do anything else with it.
Right, and that works probably very well for some of your clients that are high net worth or retired people.
Yes.
Okay, that may have a lot of assets, but they have no income.
Yeah.
But many times the mortgage lender doesn't care about that. I mean, there's types of mortgages called asset depletion and all of that, but the interest rates are higher.
Yeah.
They're more difficult to qualify. If you're over 62, there's the reverse mortgage,
Yes.
and that's another possibility. And that actually has, could be very applicable in divorce cases. But if you have assets, but little or no income, so one of my favorites is buying a fixed immediate annuity.
Annuity, okay.
Okay, so basically, now most insurance companies have a minimum term of 5 years.
Yes,
Which is not too bad because you need to have 36 months of income anyway. Well, with the fixed immediate annuity, you hand over, let's say $100,000, okay, you're getting $1,500 a month for the next 60 months.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so now you've qualified for the 36 months of continuous income. In the case of an annuity like that, you don't need the 6 months prior, you just need to show that you received one deposit into
One
your bank
deposit,
account. And there you have your income.
Okay.
And basically what happens over the 60-month period, you recoup your initial 100,000 plus whatever interest. So maybe you end up with, 106,000 at the end. But the beauty of that is the first 100,000 is not taxable because it's considered a return of your principal. So the only portion that's taxable is the 6,000 divided by 5 years. So
That's really good.
yeah, and that gives you a real income stream. And that's one way to do it. Another one is during the divorce process, you set up a revocable trust.
Okay.
So basically, money is transferred wherever it comes from, bank account, whatever, it goes into the trust. The beneficiary is the spouse that wants to keep the home.
Okay.
You need to discuss it in the divorce settlement agreement, saying X is being transferred into this revocable trust. And the beneficiary, the other spouse, will get X dollars per month for X period of time. And then the trust has to have sufficient assets to pay X for X period of time.
So it's not a problem that it's revocable in nature, because technically the grantor can just, terminate it like 2 months into the deal.
Well, yeah.
I guess the agreement has to state that you're gonna keep this in place.
Well, it has to have the money for the
Okay.
period of time or whatever, the 3 years or, I mean, that's all they care is that you can pay for at least 36 months. Well, that's the beauty, because after you're done, you're right, you revoke it and whatever.
Yeah.
But it really should be done prior to the divorce being finalized, and there should be money in
already.
the trust, because what will happen if it's done post-divorce and the spouse that wants to keep the house sets it up, most mortgage lenders will say he's self-funded.
He's self-funded, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
so-
Yeah, that's actually, but the steps there, very important. Which came first, which came second, which came third, because if not, it won't work.
Right,
It could be
and
a
it's,
solution.
and it really should be in the divorce settlement, so when the underwriters look at it, okay, everything's copacetic,
Yes.
okay, it was set up properly, and it has, the amount of funds that are necessary, and it stipulates how much is being paid per month, for how long, all the good
Yes.
stuff.
And it becomes a court order.
Right,
So it's like, this is what you agree to do.
Right.
It's not like I can just change my mind tomorrow or do something different and play around.
right,
It becomes, this is part of the agreement.
exactly.
Okay, so it's enforceable.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And as far as lenders are concerned, that works. The annuity is great. Then we talked briefly about the IRA and retirement, the 72T.
Yes, talk to me a little bit
Where
about that one.
basically you could get what's called, called a SEP. I forgot what it stands for at the moment. But basically what you're doing is it's substantially equal payments
Yeah, okay.
over a period of time. So it has to be for a minimum of 5 years, okay, or until you turn 59 and a half,
Okay.
whichever is later.
Are we talking the same steps that you can create as business owners, or are they
Yes.
different? Okay, so.
No, not a SEP account.
Okay, that's what,
Okay, yeah, no, it's something called in the IRS code, it's 72T.
Okay.
And it's SEEP, which stands for substantially equal something payments.
Okay.
Okay, and you really need an expert
To do
to
the
set
navigate
that up properly, because if you set it up properly, you avoid the 10% penalty.
Oh, that's
You
better.
don't avoid paying the taxes on the money you take out.
Yeah.
That's still, unless it's a
So
Roth.
it's ordinary income, I guess, when it comes out? Or is it just, you're paying?
Yeah, I think it would be ordinary income.
Okay.
I think it would be. And there are other requirements. I think you can't add any money to the IRA while you have the 72T.
Okay.
And you can't do it with a 401k at an existing employer.
An employer, gotcha.
Okay, so I mean, if you have an old one, whatever, you can set it up with that, but
You're
if.
kind of rolling it over is what you're doing. It's not it's not a separate sort of plan.
Right, but a lot of people from an old employer will not roll their 401k into the new employee's 401k, they'll roll it over into an IRA.
Yes.
And then with the IRA, you could set it up.
Right.
But it's anytime you're dealing with anything with the IRS, I mean, I try to read this, and now I understand why I dropped out of law school, so.
I get a headache looking at it. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I'm used to dense language in different areas, like, with lease agreement, whatever it is, and I'm just like, oh, I'm like,
Because the IRS, it's so convoluted.
Yes.
And you read one section here, and then you read 5 paragraphs down, and it just contradicted what it said up there, or there's exceptions to the exceptions to the exceptions.
Except as to CFR, da-da-da, and under these applications, under this tax code, under FI 10, and you're just like, I'm dizzy.
Yeah, well, that's why CPAs,
a lot of money.
well, I don't think AI is solving this problem anytime soon,
No.
so.
AI is gonna go, are you guys crazy to write this code? We should write the tax code for you, probably. Any software would look at it and be like, maybe we need to write the code for you, because
Just rip it up and start all over, so it's so convoluted.
Yes,
But yeah, so those are some of the ways that you could create income if you have assets. And again, there's also the asset depletion, where basically you could get a mortgage. It's called an asset depletion mortgage, and they'll look at what your assets are. So cash counts as 100%. Stock portfolio, they'll usually give you 60 to 70% because stocks can go down, and especially, in this volatile market. And retirement accounts are usually 50%. So they'll take 100% of cash and 70% of stock portfolio and 50% of retirement, and they'll add it up, and they'll divide it usually by 360 for a 30-year mortgage. And they come up with, $3,000 a month, and that's what you can afford. Now, that could be in addition to alimony, child support, other income you might have. You just can't double dip.
Yeah, because my thought is, do they put any restrictions on the use of cash? Because technically, I had one time I represented a baseball player, and it was an interesting case. It was a little while ago, probably about 8 years ago, and had lots of money in the bank, but he was retired, didn't have, he was making investment income, which had been enough for what he was trying to buy. He could not, believe it or not, it was a big property he was trying to buy. And I'm thinking to myself, all this money, and the investment income wasn't enough, and he couldn't qualify for what he wanted to try to do.
Right.
Because he didn't want to just use the assets and buy the property outright and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is a crazy situation, because it's really lost money. But then you think about also, you have money in the bank account. What happens if tomorrow you went to Vegas and you gambled it?
Well, but the assumptions, so to answer your question, like, are there any restrictions? The answer is no. They'll add it up with those percentages, they'll divide by 360 and say, okay, it's $4,000 a month or whatever. But you could go get the mortgage and spend the money tomorrow. The assumption that the mortgage lender has is that if you were financially astute enough to have this much assets, you're not going to Vegas tomorrow and blowing it all on, red or at the blackjack table. That's it. Are there people
that will? Maybe.
Oh, absolutely. People have gambling problems. Could that happen?
It's almost another way of assessing a credit score to some extent, right? There's just another way of saying if you've been able to amass a certain amount of assets and over time, and then presumably you're not going to be presumptuous.
Right, and you can't double dip. So you can't use those assets for the asset depletion and then say also, okay, now I'm taking that and I'm the same money and buying an annuity and I have more, and then I'm gonna put some in a revocable trust. So you can't do that double dipping.
Gotcha.
I mean, you could do separate things. I mean, you could take money and buy the annuity, but then you can't include that money in the asset depletion.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Wow, this has been really enlightening. I'm wondering if we missed anything, because this has been great, some great points, I think, and definitely topics I think we've hit that people just do not hear about, don't understand. I mean, I can tell you, I usually have these type of conversations with other financial professionals or accountants that they're more creative, or they understand certain things. Let's try this way, and they won't understand necessarily the mortgage rules. They can think creatively as an accountant in the sense that we can try this and use this asset for this, and I can get investment income off of this, but they're not financial professionals either. Planners or brokers. They're not actually handling the money. They know how this may happen, but the average person or attorney or anybody just not going to think of these things.
No, some of them don't know it exists, number one, or some are not that creative.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're in a box and,
Yeah.
this
I used
is.
to have my retirement account, I have my
Yeah.
house, I have my this, and that's.
And, or, many times it's like, oh, just sell the house because, it's the easiest. And I've worked with attorneys that like, I don't want to know from this, just sell it and be done and both go. But what they don't realize many times is, okay, even if they do that, they still have to qualify if they want to buy.
Yes,
They're still
yes.
divorced, there's still a divorce settlement agreement.
Yes, yes.
And they still have to live within the confines of that. So if it wasn't set up properly and worded properly, okay, then they're gonna have problems. So if.
Well, and I try to plan this out, and sometimes I have a hard time with some of my clients because they just are like over it, they're done. All right, great, I got this much money, this is what I need. Let me go, Regina. Are you sure? You know what I mean? In 7 years, your child support's gonna end.
Right.
You have these expenses, go talk to your broker, make sure they do, an income stream for you, so you know what you have to have before we settle. I try to understand where they're going to land. I don't just say, okay, yeah, you wanna sell the house, okay. Or do you wanna move? Because it's also part of even discussions on children. If the mother's like, Regina, I can't afford to live here, you know what I mean? I'm gonna have to go back to Georgia or wherever.
Right.
It has to be part of that conversation.
Well, yeah, because the other spouse may say, no, you're not moving out of town.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Regina, I have nobody here, I can't afford to live here.
Right.
I mean, how am I just gonna agree to tell them to sell the house without them understanding, they're stepping into an abyss. You have to understand the whole picture.
Well, when I do the finance, not just the house,
Yes.
when I do, everything concerning the finances, one, I assume people live now to the age of 100.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of my analyses are based upon somebody living, because I mean, I've had many high net worth clients also say, hey, I had one client, she was spending $20,000 a month on clothing.
Oh, wow.
Okay, but didn't realize because she used this credit card and that credit card. And finally I had to give it to her straight. I said, you'll live great for the next 20 years.
And then what do?
Then you're eating cat food.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and this was a woman that's walking away with $25 million, but she's spending $2 million a year.
Yes, exactly. She's used to her prior lifestyle, doesn't realize that.
Right, and money coming in.
Yes.
Now you have a finite, and if you're spending $2 million a year, even if you have investments, okay, so.
Even if it's making money, 3% even conservatively, it's still at that
you're
spending
gonna
rate.
run out of it in 15 years or whatever, and she was, I think, in her late 40s or early 50s. So it's like, yeah, you're gonna look great. Keep spending your 20 grand. How much clothing does one person need?
No, seriously.
Yeah.
But when she's at retirement age, she's gonna have nothing left. So is she gonna start working then? It's gonna
Right.
be, So, and you try, and some people, you can lead someone to the water, you can't make them drink.
True.
But I do try to at least say, listen, do you see this? I do some prenups for some, actually, particularly lately, I've been doing a lot of young individuals. I say young because they're younger than me, but maybe early 30s. They spent a couple of years in law school, making good money. They decide to get married. They're marrying a very wealthy person, and they can afford to sort of have a kid. She's going to be home, but they were signing a prenup, and I'm like, I want you to think about. You'll get child support, I get it, you will, but they also might structure it in a way that you get X percentage and the other percentage goes into a trust for the child. Even if child support works out to be $30,000 a month, you're not likely to get $30,000 yourself.
Right.
It's likely the child only needs X amount to even live a high lifestyle, and it's gonna go to a restaurant. You get divorced in 15 years. All that time is time you're not building your career, and sort of restart over again. Where are you gonna be? You won't. This indicates here that you don't get the house. You don't get this. I want you to think about this.
And sometimes you can't. I had a client like that. She was a surgeon, except she's had 5 children, and was home for 20 years. She can't restart. I'm not letting her operate on me.
No. Technology alone is changing.
First of all, I mean, she never gets recertified again. So I mean, there was no way. So the husband was saying, well, you can make 300 grand doing medical, supply sales or whatever. It wasn't realistic. But what we had to do was bring in a vocational expert.
So
okay.
she could actually make.
and it was assessed that maybe she could make 75 grand. So
but big difference
they,
between 300 and 70.
we imputed 75 grand, but it's absolutely true. So exactly right, and that's a good reason to do a post note if somebody was an attorney or whatever, and they decide to have a family and they quit, stay home, have the kids, then
Yes, it has to.
do a post-nup, deal with what happens with the house and all of those things down the road,
Right, so you know where you stand afterwards, because if not, you'll be, you're in a very difficult, you don't picture that, especially when you're younger, where you're gonna be at 45, 50, 55, you're just, in your head, everything just is going this way.
Right,
And what you remember is going out and making hundreds of thousands of dollars as a lawyer, as a, fourth year associate.
right,
Great, you're thinking life is great, if anything, I just go there, but it's not as easy to jump back into that, especially when you lack the experience after so many years. And everyone's different, whether it's a business, a career, whatever it might be, so I try to get them to understand what that means.
no, I think that's very important, because most people don't. I mean, the tagline for my other company, Bedrock Divorce Advisor, is think financially, not emotionally.
Yes.
Yeah, I trademarked it.
Yeah.
I did.
I like that. My mother was always a very genuine and emotional, compassionate person. But the one thing she always told me, she goes, Regina, you don't give up your career or like your ability to, to make money to feed your children for nothing.
Right.
Even if, and by the way, people say, oh, but you're already thinking he's going to cheat on me or already get divorced. No, what if he dies?
Well, yeah.
Or what if he has a catastrophic financial circumstances? I mean, at the end of the day, or something happens, he has an injury and he becomes
disabled or whatever.
I mean, I'm not presuming he already is going to cheat on you. That's not what I'm saying to you. But my mother always taught me, finance is one thing. And, you do not put your neck in a guillotine where you're going to be out starving or on a street for any other, so you are yourself. You have to be able to stand on your own and be out.
I forgot who
because you're loved, because you're there, because you're with a partner, but not because you're financially required to be with
I
them.
forgot who said it. Someone once said, a man is not a financial plan.
That's exactly right.
And now, because I think at least 25% of my clients, the woman is the majority wage earner.
I'm seeing that a lot,
Yes.
and I'm trying to, if women are listening.
It's true.
And a lot of times I'm finding circumstances that there are the major breadwinner, but they're also giving birth, obviously, but they're also doing a lot of the rearing, the child rearing, they're doing all this stuff at home. And it's sort of like, I tell them, you guys need to remember the same way that prenups and postnups exist the other way, that a lot of times women were asked to, to sign them. You need to consider that, because he's paying PlayStation at home every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's gonna get alimony and you're gonna be, and I'm not saying, he's entitled to it. I'm not taking that away from anybody, man or woman, if it is the law requires it. But is that what you intend?
Right, and
Is
women
that what you
hate,
agree to?
and women hate paying alimony as much as men do.
I'm sorry.
I've heard it.
Yes.
Exactly that.
Oh,
He's
yes.
sitting home all day doing this, and I have to pay him.
Yeah. Most people say, Regina, is it true men don't like to pay alimony? I'm like, nobody likes to pay alimony. If the woman is the one with the more moneyed or more sophisticated or has a lot of the control or power over things, I can tell you, women can be just as vicious and try to pull out all the stops and all the legal tricks as a man to try to avoid paying for certain things. And I get it. It's not fun also that person cheated on you, now you gotta give them alimony, but that's what's required when you get married without a pre or post nup. You know what I mean? So, and I say nowadays, I think the more recent generation, the younger generation are learning also, like, they're having a little bit of those more frank conversations. Well, what happens if I build my business and, like, you're doing your career, but I mean, like, this is mine.
Right.
And, we get married, I do want to keep it. And I tell people, you always should be, if someone helps you build something, I don't also believe in, you get nothing in this world, because it does. If you're a homemaker, it's a hard job. If you are whatever you are, it is a hard job. I'm not saying that someone's not, they help you build something.
Right.
But it has to commiserate also with the conversation has to occur beforehand, the expectations between the parties. Because sometimes we just, whatever, and I'll be fine because he's wealthy and he's this, or the prenup will matter because later he'll this. No. Do not go in that way. Have a healthier conversation. Hey, listen, if you want me to give up my career to travel with you everywhere, and then we break up in 3 years, what do I do?
Right.
I give up my apartment, I give up my career, I give up,
and things happen. I mean, that's life for whatever reason. But people don't have those frank conversations. They'll sooner talk about their sexual preferences than their financial situation.
Correct.
So
so it's sort of like, but then they're kind of, I think that's what also the late 20s, early 30s, this generation now, they're not so quick to get married.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which means more assets when they
Yes.
finally do get married.
Yeah.
They have their 401ks.
Yes.
Maybe they already own an apartment or a house or investment property or a business or a professional practice.
Yes,
So.
correct. So it becomes more there. I find them having a little bit more of those conversations.
Mhm.
As long as it's not too much, I like to say infatuation on, it's on steroids happening,
Right.
because sometimes it's like the eyes are just like, whatever you want,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're just not going to be objective, it happens, right? To the best of us, I'm sure it happens to us because we're human beings.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people sending me their prenup and say, I'm getting married from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
You think this is fair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
So.
Yeah, so I think it's very important. I think the most important thing, and such a big part of our lives, family law or family in general.
Mhm.
You're getting married, your house, your financial, it all envelops one. Children, your person, yourself, your potential business, your career, whatever assets you've accumulated, and your financial health. Because it's not just, okay, that costed me $20,000, but I'm done. No, it could be a continuous
Absolutely.
stream out
Mhm.
or an obligation for 20 years with alimony or something else, or including with children, obviously, which should be.
Or in my case, lifetime.
Okay, yes, exactly. So, I think what's one thing is to be educated about, understand it. It has to happen. It can devastate you sometimes. It's not like, okay, I bought the wrong outfit and I'm okay.
Right.
Whatever, I'll just give it away. No, this is monumentally can change the issues of finance and family law. In general, right? You're married. Even people that cohabitate, it becomes a little complicated when they start intertwining their finances.
Well, that's why they should have a cohabitation agreement,
Yes,
and
yes.
if it's done well, if they get married, it could just convert right into a prenup.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
yeah, because otherwise you have people go, well, wait a second, I bought the couch and,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
but you bought
I
this
want
one.
the couch back, or they're
Yeah.
fighting over pets.
Yeah, that's a rough one. That's a rough one.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Well, a lot of states previously considered personal property.
Yes.
Now they're giving pets like, like custody and child support. Because they become part of the family.
They really
do.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, I adore my children with my life, but my pets are nicer to me. And my dog and my cat, my children keep saying to my daughter and my son, like, I'm taking them or we're leaving them. They're not. Even I complain that they're the ones that brought them into the house, or they swore they'll take care of them.
Right.
And all
Never
three,
happens.
they're all in my bed. Around night, we're like, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So, my children are gonna have to fight me on that one, but, but they're like children.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this has been very fascinating and wonderful. I think a lot of information I think people don't have that hopefully they're receiving and can see. And of course, they can always watch this video. If they're not see the whole thing or they want to see it later. I think it's a wonderful. I think Mr. Jeff, thank you for coming.
You're too polite.
Yes. And thank you. This has been so informative and I think helpful. I think for our audience and for many parties out there, particularly women. I know these principles apply to men and women, but like we say, a lot of times it is right now affecting a lot of women more, especially if they keep the children or they're homemakers.
Right.
In general, and I think each party needs to be very cognizant of where they're going to land or where their life is
Right,
going.
and things are more difficult now because of the interest rate
Yes,
environment.
yes.
And that's making these decisions more difficult. And what I've been telling people is that if this is, if you're either thinking about divorce or already filed for divorce, start thinking about bringing in a divorce mortgage real estate expert.
Yes.
Because you know what? We could help you get your credit report in shape. We could figure out what to do with your debt. And this takes,
Time.
you can't increase your credit score, in a week.
No.
Okay, so by the time we get you in shape, interest rates might be down.
Yes. Or you have the choice. Maybe you're holding on a little longer.
Right.
I have a lot of people that are staying together. They did divorce consults 1.5 years, and they're just like, I'm just waiting, Reg, till the right time, or to this, or to his retirement. I'm just like, and I talked to him about, the pros and cons of doing so. But a lot of times also we can't afford it.
Well,
Can't afford
you're hearing more.
I can't afford to.
Right, and now people are nervous that,
Yes.
the recession and they're gonna lose their job.
Right.
Okay, can't get divorced now. If I lose my job, how am I gonna pay any of this, right? So.
Correct. So hopefully these are different topics and information that will help our guest, make decisions. And Jeff, by all means. Oh, well, my manager is telling us we went past an hour. Oops. We did say we could talk for hours.
We did indeed.
Yes, yes. So, I am wrapping it up, I promise. So that's me. I like to talk. I do like to talk. And it's nice. It's a great topic to talk about different things. But hopefully this is helpful for all our viewers. And
Hopefully, yes.
yes, and by all means, pick up Jeff's book, Divorce House Sense. It's fantastic. A little part up. And call Jeff. He does not want you to call him Mr. Landers. So you need to call him and say, hi, Jeff.
Exactly.
So, but I want to thank you very much for coming today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was fun. This was good.
Good. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to The Legal Zone, another episode. And I think I forgot to mention this is season 3, episode 4. But there you go, just in case you want to be able to identify it for the future on one of our platforms. And again, please tune in in the future for additional podcasts and follow us on our social media accounts and become a subscriber to our platforms. Thank you so much.